Hello, 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 and welcome back to Mondays with Matt. I am ecstatic, delighted, over the moon to have you here with us. And give me a one as you're jumping on. Let me know you're excited to be here for Mondays with Matt, this weekly pilgrimage that we go on every single week. It's always an honor to be here with you. So let me know where you're watching from, whatever corner, far-flung corner of the world you might be watching from. What's up, Marion? Marion is here. Marion Ernest is here. Louisa Dornian is here. Hey, y'all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. For those of you joining who may not know me, for some crazy reason, somehow you stumbled onto this broadcast. My name is Matt Schaefer. I'm a transformational speaker and coach for women. I coach women around empowerment, connection, and relationship, and I am absolutely obsessed with the work that I do and the women that I serve, my marvelous, magnificent magnettes, many of whom watch this show each and every week, including Miss Michelle Healy, Maya Shani, Katie Living Good. Love that name, Katie Living Good. Stacy Magia is here. I'm excited to have you. Yvette Labajo is here. It's always such an honor to join you here each and every week for Mondays with Matt. This is my weekly show on personal development, transformation, emotional intelligence, love, connection, spirituality, basically all the things that I'm learning and discovering and living in my own personal development journey. I come to you once a week to have a co-creative conversation with you around this stuff, right? There is no script. There is no outline. This is just me dropping in and flowing with you. What's up, Sarah Angeletti? Good to see you, my dear. And y'all are part of what make this magic. And just so you know, I have been doing this each and every week since January 2nd of 2017. Yes. Without fail, without missing a week. I have done this every week for 4 years now. It's kind of crazy to think about, right? But it's an honor, it's a privilege, and I'm just excited to be here with you because this is a beautiful, sacred process for me as well. And speaking of sacred processes, if you've been watching the last couple weeks, you know I've been sharing experiences from my recent plant medicine journey. I just got back from the jungles of Costa Rica, where I was down there with my buddy Aaron Dowdy and Victor Odo to do basically a shamanic plant medicine retreat with them and 30 of their tribe members from all over the world. And it was one of the most profound experiences of my life. And part of what I really unlocked in the first couple days, where we did ayahuasca, was about the absolute, utter, magnificent perfection of the present moment, and just how we get to operate within the present moment from a space of play, right? What does it look like for us to play with love, to lovingly play with the world, to play with reality? You know, that was sort of the big breakthroughs I had the first two days of the journey, right? But then on the third day, we did a different plant medicine. We did a plant medicine called Wachuma, which is actually San Pedro, the cactus, okay? So this is a very heart-centered medicine. And this is a medicine that's really a heart opener. It's a heart connector. And so for me, I thought because I didn't have any I didn't have any catharsis, any huge trauma-related stuff happen the first 2 days, okay? So the first 2 days, I was waiting for the trauma to come, and instead, it was just pure cosmic bliss and ecstasy and new dimensions and just like incredible revelatory divine experiences, okay? So the first 2 days, I was waiting for the trauma release, and it didn't happen. So then on the third day is supposed to be like the party day, right? This is just what I had heard, right? Wachuma, it's a fun day. It's just social and light and connected and everything, you know? So we take this Wachuma and I go off and meditate for 2 hours is what we had to do. And all of a sudden, I felt something start to bubble up inside of me. And I'm going to share a little bit about what that is, where it came from, and hopefully it'll give you some stuff that y'all can use to really help you release what's no longer serving you, right? Because the theme of this week's show is how to release with love, or how to let go with love. I forget what I said it, but really it's all about letting go. Because how many of you are aware that you store trauma, that you store pain, that you store feelings in your body? Give me a one if y'all are aware of that. Hi, Danielle Cavallari Rani. So nice to see you, my dear. It's been a while. So give me a one if you're aware that you store shit in your body. Okay? And once we store stuff in our body, guess what? And I'm talking like our body. I want you to think of your body as a hard drive. It is a storage container. Hi, Carmela. Good to see you, hon. Your body is a storage device. It is a storage container. And over the years, and not just in this lifetime, right, but past lifetimes as well, but for the sake of our conversation, we're going to talk about, this singular lifetime. Your body accumulates vibration and vibrational energy. And unless you release that vibrational energy, it will continue to accumulate and aggregate, and it can lead to various terrible conditions, right? Health conditions, disease, emotional conditions, okay? So for me, I have had I'm going to call it a somatic knot. So somatic means it's in the body, right? And it's a knot, basically about the size of my fist or maybe a little smaller, of just pure tension and anxiety. And it lives right, you can't quite see it from here, but it lives right here, right below my heart, right here below, right underneath my rib cage. Okay, so this is something that I noticed for the first time when I was in law school. I remember I was walking up the steps to the courthouse and I felt this, and I was on Adderall at the time, which again, something I've been on a lot in my life, at different periods of my life. I haven't been on it for a while now, but I noticed this ball of tension in my chest, and I realized that it never really went away. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. I hope this goes away someday. Guess what? It never went away. It never went away. It gets bigger and smaller, but it's this ball of tension and anxiety and fear. Whenever I'm feeling anxiety, whenever I'm feeling like stressed out about things, it gets bigger. And then whenever I get less stressed out or I get more relaxed or whatever, it'll get a little smaller, but it never goes away. Except for one 3-day period after my first leadership training, where I had a huge cathartic release during that leadership training, and it went away for 3 days. And then it came back with a vengeance, okay? So I've known about this thing, and it's been so pervasive, and it's been such a constant in my life that I stopped talking about it. I don't talk about it because I just assumed that it's something that I was going to die with. Hey, Cole Markison, good to see you, buddy. And so I've been dealing, and I named him, by the way. I named him Bruce. So one cool thing, give me a one if you have one of these. If you have a sort of a trauma spot that you're aware of on your body. Can you give me a one and let me know where it is? If you have one, okay? Because Bruce has been a continual partner of mine, a continual companion of mine for a long fucking time. 17 years that I'm aware of, right? And he was probably building up before that too. I just became consciously aware of him. And let me know if you have one of these, where it is. Tracy says it's in her chest. Okay, so I invite you, if you have one of these, we want to start learning to build a relationship with this stored trauma, okay? Raina says it's in her shoulder. Danielle says it's in her stomach. Interesting, great. Well, it's great that y'all are already aware of this, because really awareness, becoming conscious of this stuff is a huge part of it. It's a huge part of it. Carmela says on my knee. Yeah, Carmela, you can get this crap anywhere. Christy says in my neck. I store a lot of tension in my neck as well. Yeah, what's up, Brienne? Good to see you, hun. So Laura asks, how do you find out if you have one? Well, Laura, I invite you to do a full body scan. Do a full body scan of your body right now, or especially when you're in a stressful situation, when you're in pain, right? When you're in an emotionally trying situation, and really look at yourself. Where do you store stress in your body? And really ask yourself, does that stress ever fully leave? Caitlin, in my neck. Yeah, Caitlin, me too. Neck's a big one. In my chest. Okay, so y'all have areas. So wherever you're holding on to that pain, wherever you're holding on, whatever that default spot is, I want you to personify it. I want you to give it a name, okay? Because we want to start to characterize this wound, or this, because I consider mine to be a wound. It's like an ongoing traumatic location. What's up, Christina Tobin? In her heart. Wow. That's an interesting place to carry trauma. So you want to give your trauma, so you want to give this somatic, whatever it is, this stored pain, this stored tension, this or whatever, you want to give it a name. That way you can start to build a relationship with it, okay? So I've been aware of Bruce for a really long time. I have tried other ways to get rid of Bruce. I have had a witch friend of mine do an exorcism on Bruce. It did not work. I have had a funny story. When she was doing this exorcism thing on me, she was doing cupping, and she had a thing over my eyes, a blindfold thing over my eyes, and all of a sudden I felt this searing pain down the side of my chest, and she started laughing, And I just was like, did you just light me on fire? And it turns out the liquid that they use to do the cupping, it just spilled on me, and it just lit the side of my belly on fire. But again, I'm focus boxing myself, but that was really funny. So yes, I got lit on fire during an exorcism. That did happen. But so I've tried a variety of things to try to get Bruce out of my life, because he sucks the joy out of my life. He robs me of the spectrum of human experience. I have hated Bruce. Bruce has been a monster for me. I have not had a good relationship with Bruce for most of my life. So that's the context to understand what happened on this Wachuma ceremony, right? So after I did this Wachuma, and I was out there meditating, and I started having these like really like powerful, like loving thoughts about, you know, a woman that I've started seeing that I'm very excited about. And I've had I just had a lot of like heart-centered things flowing into my life, right? And then all of a sudden, I felt Bruce start to, and here's the problem is Irena says hers is called Renita, that Renita throws temper tantrums here and there. Oh, Renita, I love that. So she's got a name for it. Name your trauma. Name your somatic wound is first big step, okay? But so the big problem with Bruce is I'm not able to access him, right? He normally stays there sort of locked up, locked away, and I'm not able to get to him, okay? But as I was dropping into this, Carmela's going to name hers Oscar. Yeah, let me know the name. Let me know what you're going to name your trauma in the comments, okay? So as the Wachuma started to fully kick in, right, and I started to like drop into my heart, or really attempt to drop into my heart, Bruce started to like spasm like this. Like he was like moving, he was like moving around and like twitching like this. And it was very deeply uncomfortable. And I'm like, oh my God. It's like I started feeling sick. And I'm like, well, this is interesting. Bruce is activated right now. So what can I do with this situation and this experience? And I went back down to the shaman. He called us in for the next stage of the ceremony, you know. And during that stage, we had an opportunity to sit down with him and be served hape, which is a ceremonial tobacco that's lovely, and they blow it up your nose, and you have this lovely rush experience with it. And I sat down with him and I asked him, I'm like, hey man, I've had this thing in my stomach. I've had this like ball of tension in my stomach for the better part of 20 years. And it's so uncomfortable, and I'm feeling it a lot right now. I mean, like, can you help me release this? Like, what can I do to release this? And he's like, Matthew, the time to release it is now. He's like, who is it? Who does it represent? And I'm like, well, honestly, it probably has to do a little bit with just, you know, with my mom, you know, because a lot of my anxiety sort of flows from my relationship with my mother. My mother's an incredible human, and she was an incredible mother, right? But she had a lot of anxiety, and I internalized a lot of anxiety just, I think, being in proximity with her, and made up a lot of stories about myself. And that was just the first place I went. And he's like, have you given a prayer to your mother? And so part of what the ceremony was we would wrap tobacco up in different colored paper or different colored cloth and throw it into the altar, and with prayers, with intentions for forgiveness and love and healing and all this different stuff. And he's like, have you done tobacco for your mother? And I'm like, yes, I have. And he's like, do some more. And so I threw some more tobacco into the altar for my mom. And he did, you know, he did a hape on me. And the instant that he did the hape on me, I felt this overwhelming urge to go cry. So I ran off of the patio, and I went, and I was like hanging off a tree, just sobbing. And I realized that Bruce was awake. Bruce was activated. But I still, at this point, had no idea if I was going to be able to fully connect with Bruce. Like, because Bruce was very irritated, he was very activated, he was very belligerent, but I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to really get in there with Bruce, because I realized that I'm scared of Bruce. I realized as I'm in this moment that I'm scared of Bruce. I'm scared of facing whatever that is inside of me. And so for the rest of the day, I walk around, you know, having this beautiful experience, having this great trip. It's a cool, very beautiful process with these people. But I'm very unhappy. I'm very uncomfortable the whole time, because I'm like feeling this very wrathful, like neurotic energy in my side, and I don't know what the hell to do with it, and nothing. And I just assumed that I wasn't going to be able to access it. And then I was coming out of the bath. I'll never forget this. I was coming out of the bathroom. It was probably about 6 o'clock, and the sun was like setting down below the jungle, right? And the sky was all hazy, and the sun was like setting down into the ocean, like down into the jungle. And it was just the most. And I'm on a cliff in Costa Rica, watching, like listening to howler monkeys, watching the sun just slowly descend down into the jungle, framed by the ocean. And I just was like so overwhelmed. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, right? So I'm like so blown away by the beauty of it that I feel the need to start crying. And so I just let myself cry a little bit, you know, which isn't always easy for me. I let myself start to cry, and as I started to cry, I felt Bruce start to spasm, and I'm like, oh my God, I think I have an opportunity here to connect with Bruce. And so I just sort of like leaned my consciousness into Bruce, which I hadn't done in a really long time. You know, I really allowed myself to breathe into him and to feel into him. And as I did that, and I was crying, as I did that, the deepest wave of despair that you can possibly imagine came washing over my body. And I just started sobbing. I just started sobbing, hysterically crying. And then another huge wave of it came over, and it doubled me over onto my hands and knees. And I threw up. I started purging. I haven't purged at all the entire 3 days, okay? And I realized in this moment that Bruce is ready to play, that Bruce is ready to come out. And what I experienced in this moment, the deep intuitive knowing that I experienced, was that more than anything, Bruce wanted to be heard. Bruce wanted to be witnessed. Bruce wanted to be experienced. And I'm like, all right, Bruce, you know what? I will hang with you as long as you want. And just to give you a summary, for the next 4 hours, me and Bruce locked horns. I leaned into Bruce. I witnessed Bruce, and waves of just I would have a wave of incredible pain, you know, like heartbreaking, agonizing pain. Then I would have a wave of rage, and I would start screaming, and I went from doubling over to, you know, collapsing onto the ground, and I was like digging my nails through the dirt and clawing at the grass, and I started screaming, and then I started crying, and then I puked again, and it was like wave after wave of like emotion. And I realized that I was having a cathartic release of decades of trauma. And for 4 hours, I'm spasming like a shrimp, because, you know, all of that side of me, that part of me where Bruce is, was just like wanting to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. And I'm rolling around on the ground, and then I would start laughing. And crying, and then I would start screaming again, and it was just the wildest thing. Luis is asking, was somebody with me? Yes, I was out on this area. There were 30 some people out there watching me have the gnarliest cathartic release in the history of plant medicine ceremonies. People, were they holding space for me? Not really, because it wasn't that type of experience. I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was getting myself into. And for me, this was like the emotional intelligence Super Bowl. This was like what I've been training for the last 7 years, was to have an opportunity to face my 800-pound gorilla, you know? And so for 4 hours, I had an emotional exorcism. I laughed, I cried, I rolled around on the ground like a maniac. I made sounds that my body has never made, like deep, guttural, just horrific sounds flowing out of me. And you know what was crazy? I actually felt the emotions of my childhood. I felt my wounded little boy. I felt that isolation and that sense of not feeling like I was good enough, that I was wrong. There was something not enough of me. I felt that wash over me. And then I felt the rage that I felt and so it's like I almost felt the different stages of my life. I felt all of that trauma just come out of me, and I hung with it for 4 freaking hours until my body physically just ran out of gas. It was the craziest experience of my life. Justine says, was the shaman there? Yeah, the shaman came over, Justine, and like did a ceremony on me when I was literally like my body curling up in the air, and I'm like speaking in tongues almost. I mean, I don't even know the words I was saying wasn't even making sense, you know? And he came over and he did a ceremony and did some smoke stuff and did some different oils on me and stuff. I mean, like the whole thing was just like out of a movie. It was the wildest experience of my life. And I emerged on the other side of this like with this completely new understanding of Bruce. And a completely new understanding of my own trauma and my own wounding, you know? And I literally crawled back to the altar at the end of the 4 hours, you know? Oh, no, it's not too bad someone did not film this. Y'all would be scared. Y'all would be scared if you had watched the video of this. I would be scared. I don't know how I would deal with that. And Carmela asked, does that sound scary? And I mean, Carmela, here's the thing, like, for me, it wasn't scary. For me, it was beautiful. To other people, it might have looked scary, but for me, I loved it. I loved every minute of it because for me, I was able to finally connect and release something that I literally felt like had been rotting inside of me for 20 years. Like, just like sucking the life out of me, you know? And so, like, I say all that just to say, getting to the theme of this, yeah, it was a deep purification. It was a profound, it was the most powerful experience of my life. It was something where I was like looking at my body from outside of my body, like looking down on myself, just like on the ground, howling like a monkey, you know, like just weeping into the grass, you know, screaming with rage. And I allowed myself to fully experience all the feelings. And I realized in that moment that like where Bruce had came from was from me suppressing my feelings, from me avoiding my feelings, from me leaning away from my feelings. And I think that is a main reason why we start storing this shit in our body, is we do not give ourselves a chance to experience it. So what I want you to do, this is the Matt challenge for this week, is I want you to go through your body. Especially, I want you to really listen to your body when you are in experiences of stress, when you're experiences of pain, when you think about things that are painful to you. And I want you to see, where does that energy go? Where does that energy go? Does it go to your neck? Does it go to your shoulders? Does it go to your side? Does it go to your chest, your heart? Where does it go to? Does it get stuck in your throat? And then really tap into that area. Tap into that area. Do a meditation. Tap into that area. See what that area is trying to tell you. Because so much of what the poison is, so much of what's driving you crazy is the fact that you are storing all this stuff and you're not connecting with it. You're not giving it an opportunity to be seen, to be heard, to be felt, to be released. Louisa says beautifully here, the body always tells the story. Yeah. Jacqueline says, I'm in constant struggle, physically and mentally. Justine says it's in her neck and shoulders. Yeah, we all carry it somewhere. I carry a lot of it in my neck and my shoulders too. But my 800-pound gorilla is Bruce, okay? And I can tell you, like, after going through this experience with Bruce, like, my relationship with Bruce is much different. First off, Bruce is dramatically less intense. He's not 100% gone, but our relationship has changed fundamentally. I have a loving relationship with Bruce now. I check in with Bruce every day, you know? And Bruce is like 80% less intense than he was before this trip, which is a massive, epic paradigm shift for me. I probably have one, I'm probably going to do one more of these retreats and probably release him completely. That's my goal, right? So what I want to tell you is by developing consciousness, by developing conscious awareness of your somatic trauma, of your somatic wounds, right? Just developing that consciousness and building a relationship with it and asking that trauma, what does it need? Does it want to be heard? Does it want to be felt? Does it want to be expressed? And then what does that look like? Does it look like you screaming into a pillow for half an hour? Do you need to pound on your mattress? Oh yeah, Kelsey's gonna come down with us. Yeah, now I'm part of the retreat team for Aaron, with Aaron and Victor. So I'm gonna be going down to Costa Rica on the regular. to go on more cosmic plant medicine adventures with my dear soul fam. So I'm excited to have Kelsey coming with us. So if y'all want to come with, it's going to be awesome. We're going to have a good time. Louisa says the pain has a message for you. Exactly, Louisa. The pain has a message for you. Your body has a message for you. And truly, like so much of what plagues us, at least what plagued me, was the fact that I spent so much of my time, so much of my life just storing it away, shoving it away, not allowing myself to feel it, not allowing myself to access it. And it just was one of those things that just was, it was killing me. It was killing me. And now I have a loving relationship with it. I will never ignore Bruce again. So ignoring your pain, ignoring your wounds, ignoring your trauma, none of it's going to, that's never going to resolve it. Suppressing these feelings, your feelings need to be felt. Feeling is healing. The only way out is through. So those emotions that you're avoiding the most, the fear, the terror, the isolation, it's screaming for your support. Kelsey's asking, did he have that name before you went? Yes, Kelsey, I named Bruce Bruce. Dana asked, who's Bruce? Bruce is the somatic knot of pain and anxiety that has lived below the left side, underneath the left side of my rib cage, pretty much where my spleen is at. I think it's connected to my spleen for almost 20 years, consciously. So yes, Dana, you want to name these things so you can start to build a relationship with them. So what I want to say, and what I really want to like circle back to and land for this episode of Mondays with Matt, is that we get to release our somatic trauma by building a relationship with it and by pouring love into it. Because when Bruce and I were locked in battle, it wasn't that I was hating him. It wasn't that I was trying to kill him. I was lovingly leaning into him. I gave him the space to rage. I gave him the space to cry. I gave him an avenue to be heard, to be seen, not just by me, but by the 38 other people that were at this retreat center. Everybody heard what Bruce had to say. And it felt fucking good. It felt good to get it out. I spend too much time swallowing my anger. This is another thing, is that how do we stop? So another big part of the Matt Challenge this week is, how do we stop once we've identified our pain and we've come up with an avenue to release it, a cathartic mechanism, right? Whether that be going down to the jungle and doing Wachuma, or doing talk therapy, or writing your inner child a letter. Yeah, Suzanne says, is this the same as your wounded inner child? It absolutely is. It absolutely can be. I experienced a lot of the emotional trauma of my childhood during this cathartic release. I felt the different stages of my own childhood. Blah, blah, one thing at a time, one scream, one cry, one puke at a time, you know? And so once you identify this, and you build a relationship with it, right? You build a relationship with your trauma, with your pain, with your wounds, right? Then you find a mechanism to release it. Kelsey breaks glass. I love it. That's a great one, Kelsey. You find a mechanism to release it, and you get to release it with love. You get to love this part of yourself. You get to love the woundedness of this. And this was really brought home to me, right? On my way home from Costa Rica, I was completely bombed. I was so tired, right? As you can imagine, right? And I was listening to a book by a guy named Matt Kahn. Matt Kahn is a beautiful spiritual channel, and he wrote a book, because what kept coming up for me as I was having this experience was the visualization of flowing, loving white light into Bruce, of lovingly holding space for Bruce, of loving Bruce, loving that wounded little boy, right? Loving all the pain that I've experienced, because that's the only way I'm ever going to heal it, right? And so then, you know, that was what I kept experiencing intuitively during my whole trip, right? And so then I'm on the plane ride home, and I'm going through my Audible, and I'm like, what do I want to listen to? And I had bought a book 2 years ago called Whatever Arises, Love That, by Matt Kahn. And I'm like, oh shit. I think, and I tried to listen to it years ago, couldn't do it. I was like, this book's just a bunch of woo-woo BS, you know? Like, I couldn't do it because I wasn't ready for it yet, right? I bought the book, a couple years before I was ready for it, but I realized that this was the time for me to listen to it. So I put in my earbuds and I put on this book, and it's just the most beautiful, profound, channeled narrative, right? About how the only answer to pain and to fear and to sorrow and to isolation is love. The only answer, the only response. It isn't anger, it isn't rage. The only thing that we get to feed and keep dripping into all of these experiences is love, understanding, compassion, empathy, patience. But it's all just love. Whatever arises, love that. That's the mantra. That's the key to healing. That's the key to catharsis. Whatever arises, love that. Pain arises, love it. Fucking isolation, terror arises, love that. Rage, love it. It's all love, right? If we can respond as the divine witness to whatever we are experiencing, whatever trauma and pain we are feeling, if you're able to just love it unconditionally, love it without judgment, right? That's when we truly accept the woundedness of our past. That's when we truly accept and begin to heal our wounded little inner child, right? Our wounded little Dana or little Jacqueline or little Matt. And I'm never going to hate Bruce again. I'm never going to lean away from my trauma again. I breathe into it now. I did it just now. I breathe into Bruce. I'm letting him know that I'm here. I'm not going to hide from him. I'm not going to deny that he exists anymore. I'm going to keep leaning into him with love and showing him that I love him and that I'm here to be in that space, right? Beth Schaeferman says, letting go has always been hard, but I've been aware of its stresses. Yeah, so I'm learning to still be in love, lead with love and kindness. Just be, no stress. Exactly, Beth. Like, I am going to be, my sole intention, or one of my intentions moving forward, is to continually be lovingly embracing the pleasant moment. I keep saying the pleasant moment. The present moment, and truly like feeling into myself continually with patience and love and grace. Because if I cannot love myself, then I cannot fully love another person. You know, and for me, being able to love others, being able to pour love unconditionally and without codependence into my clients and students, being able to truly, deeply love my romantic partner, you know, which I truly feel like a huge part of my evolution in the last month is that, you know, I've met someone who, I mean, truly embodies that same loving grace that I'm seeking to integrate and bring into my own life. Like, she embodies it so purely and so profoundly that, you know, she's been a huge heart-opening experience for me as well, you know? And so, like, I get to do this work for my own sake and also for the sake of, like, the relationship that I want to create with her, you know, the relationships I want to create with my friends and my family. Like, I get to embody and embrace love in a deeper way. And it starts with me. It starts with my own body, you know? So I want you to really like tap into that and give me a 1 if you're committed to embracing the Matt Challenge this week, which is to connect with your body. Look for the places where you are holding on to stress, anxiety, guilt, fear, pain, anger, all of those emotions. Name it, characterize it. Don't look at it as a monster. It's a part of you, right? But it gets to be addressed. And what it needs more than anything is for you to acknowledge that it's real, and then for you to lean into it and hold space for it and feel that shit. Okay? Are y'all with me? Oh, thank you, Michelle. She is amazing. She's pretty amazing. Maya Shani says, I just had an aha moment. There are men who are into this. You know what, Maya? It's funny you say that, because at the end of the retreat, right, we have to go around and hug everybody else that was a part of the retreat. And it was so beautiful, because that's the thing. I wasn't sure how people were going to receive my exorcism, right? Because it was so dramatic. It was so over the top. It was like nobody else, but it was real. It was fucking real, right? And nobody else had anything nearly as hardcore happen as what I experienced out there, like in pure, full view of everybody, you know? And so I was like, I don't know how people are going to respond. The feedback I got from women was that they were so moved and so appreciative to see a man being willing to go that deep, being willing to really face his shadow and face his darkness, like right out in the middle of everybody, right? And really like lean into that vulnerability. Like it like gave them hope, which I thought was so cool. And yeah, like I was so moved by that, you know, and if I can be that example, if I can be, you know, that person to hopefully like give women hope that there are men like me out there, right? And give men hope that, you know, because here's the thing, a lot of the reason that men don't do this work is because they feel like nobody gives a shit and nothing can help them. I felt like that at various points in my own life, you know? And Andrew says, I show the other guys how it's done. I definitely set the bar pretty high for the other fellas at the retreat, but everybody did awesome work. Everybody had an amazing experience there. And yeah, I was really humbled and honored by the feedback that I got after the experience, you know. But I share all this with y'all not to toot my own horn, but truly to express to you that, you know, I had an experience that I didn't think was possible for me. And this is after me doing years of personal development. I didn't think there was any way that I was ever going to be able to deal with Bruce, like in a constructive way. And then it happened, right? It happened from a bunch of cosmic synchronicities, from me connecting with Aaron, and then me going down to Tulum with Aaron and having a beautiful experience with him down there. And then, you know, then finding out about this retreat in Costa Rica. And before I knew anything about it, without studying ayahuasca or plant medicine or anything before, I just said, yeah, I'm in. I just trusted the intuitive little signs and guideposts that were coming my way, you know? And I just made a choice to go to Costa Rica without knowing what was going to happen down there, you know? And I just flew down there, and it ended up being like arguably the most beautiful experience of my life. And where now I've truly connected and integrated with a beautiful soul fam, you know, of like Aaron and Victor and Patty. Like these three are like my they're like my soul. They're like such a deep, profound soul fam for me that like they said, I mean, they told me, right? They're like, you know, we can't imagine doing these retreats without you. Like, will you be part of our retreat team and just come down and help us do this? And I'm like, that is like one of the most, I'm so humbled by that, you know, and I'm so beautiful to be able to share that experience with them and to help create experiences like that for their guests moving forward. I'm like just so excited for all the beautiful adventures we're going to have all over the world doing these retreats, you know? And so, I mean, what was that? Yeah, Kelsey says, Patty was so awesome. Yeah, Patty's awesome, Kelsey. She's a true mystic woman, like of the highest caliber, like a shamaness. She's so amazing. And again, it's all just from me trusting myself, trusting my intuition, trusting the opportunities that are being presented before me, and trusting where they're going to lead me. And this is where they've led me. They led me to a huge release that I didn't know how else it was ever going to happen, right? So you may not know how these things are going to release, but I just want you to know that they can. 100%. Okay? It's beautiful and it's magic. And the world that we live in is 100% magic. Maria asks, how does it feel to be with her? Do you feel like you can truly let go and connect with her genuinely at the core of who you truly are? That's perfectly expressed, Maria. Yeah, I truly do. And it's interesting that it's interesting that it has come at the same time that I've connected with myself and embraced myself at the deepest level that I ever have. It's almost like the two things happened simultaneously, you know? And it was all, and honestly, ironically enough, a lot of it happened the instant I released attachment. The instant I released attachment to staying in Portland, the instant I released attachment to, you know, the trajectory of kind of like where I'm going in terms of my own personal growth, I just said, I'm releasing attachment to any of it. Let's just see what happens. And then this unfolded for me, you know, as I just decided that, you know, I'm just going to embrace myself at the deepest level and just trust myself. And this has all happened. So again, you know, it's pretty magic. It's pretty magic. So this magic, I share all this with you again, just to let you know that, you know, whatever magic you want to create in your life, you can create by trusting your intuition, surrendering what no longer serves you, listening to your body wisdom, right? Connecting with it, tapping into it, and seeing setting intentions. Like, I have made a conscious choice over the last 2 years that I wanted my life to be an adventure, that I wanted to heal, that I wanted to get into the best shape of my life, that I wanted to meet an incredible, partner, right? That I truly feel, I can build a life with and travel the world with. And I feel that way. I'm not even going to like butter it up for y'all. Like, I really feel that way about this woman, and have I known her that long? No, but it also feels like I've known her my whole life. So it's kind of like one of those like magical things where, again, I'm just trusting the journey. I'm trusting the process in terms of my business, in terms of my own personal health, in terms of my relationship, in terms of all of it. Let's just see what's next. Let's see how much better can life get, right? How could it get even better? What if we stopped looking at our lives in terms of what else could go wrong, and instead we said, wow, how could it get any better? How could things get even better? Things are so good, and how could they get even better? That's the world that I'm choosing to live in right now. That doesn't mean I don't get stressed. That doesn't mean I don't deal with bullshit. I spent all day today dealing with bullshit, doing stuff that I don't like to do, doing back-end bullshit paperwork, like doing all this like shenanigans. But you know what? I'm okay, right? I don't mind doing a little of that because I know that my life is perfect. I know that the present moment is perfect. I know that everything and everyone flowing into my life is perfectly in alignment with the intentions that I have set and created for my life. And I'm so blessed and honored to have each and every one of you along here for the journey with me. Jacqueline says it'll get better when you get as big as Tony Robbins. I don't know if I'll ever get as physically big as Tony Robbins, Jacqueline. He's a fairly looming individual. But it'd be fun to speak on a stage in front of as many people as Tony Robbins. That'd be a rush. I'd be excited about that. So yeah, ladies. So I hope that y'all enjoyed this show. Michelle asked how many flowers now. Only two. We're working our way up. Oh, thank you, Susie. I appreciate that. And just know, that like I share my story just so you can get a window into my life. You can get a window into my own journey, into my own process, because y'all are on this journey with me. Even if you're not down there in the jungle with me, y'all are in this journey with me. We're all walking this path together, and I'm so deeply honored to be a part of your journey and your process. Whether you're one of my magnets, whether you've done a beta, however you've connected with me, if you're one of my students, if you're one of my tribe, know that I love you and I'm honored to be on this path with you, right? And last personal life update that I want to give you is another huge thing I had coming out of the jungle was no more caffeine. That overstimulation is a huge reason why I have trouble accessing my emotions, as I spend so much of my life overstimulated. So that was another huge message I got coming out of the jungle was caffeine gets to go bye-bye. And guess what? I'm like 8 days off. 8 days off. So, and I'm finally feeling good. Finally feeling good. It's been a gnarly week, but I've come a long way on the no caffeine thing too. So just look at that. Look at the substances you're putting into your body. Because if you are doing a bunch of alcohol, if you are doing a bunch of caffeine, right, a bunch of stimulants, if you're doing a bunch of pot, all these things desensitize us. They numb us out. Right, they hijack our hormones and our emotional systems so that we're not able to fully feel and process and release things in an organic way. So I've gone cold turkey on all caffeinated drinks for like 8-9 days, and I'm finally starting to feel truly like myself again. You guys want to hear the monkey call? The monkey call. It's not a very good monkey call. It's like. That's my howler monkey call. It did work. It got them fired up. They would do it right back to me when I would do it to them. So I know that the howler monkeys we were chatting about something. I hear they pee on your heads too. I'm glad none of them ever did that to me. Or they'll sling their poop at you. I love the howler monkeys. Thank you, Christine. I appreciate that. So there you go. You have seen the howler monkey call. You have heard me ramble for quite a while. I'm glad y'all enjoyed the show. Just know that whatever you're holding on to in your body, you can release it with love. The book, if you want that book from Matt Kahn, it's called Whatever Arises, Love That. and I would highly recommend you getting it on Audible so you can hear the frequencies of his voice. His voice is in and of itself, it is a meditative frequency, right? So you don't even need to really listen to the words, just listening to this dude talk. And he's got his own YouTube channel. He's about us. He's legit, right? But his book is really cool because it's just this beautiful channeled, it's a huge book too. It's like a beautiful channeled, like 12, 13-hour audio book of just listening to this dude just like talk about the nature of spiritual awakening and the importance of being not in an overly stimulated emotional state. And that was a huge takeaway from that book that, again, directly reinforced the work I was doing with myself. Because coming out of ayahuasca and coming out of Wachuma, the Mama Ayahuasca told me, one of the huge intuitive knowings I had was no more caffeine. And then when I start listening to this book, Matt Kahn says that the reason that people have so much emotional trauma and so much ugliness in their world is because they have an overstimulated nervous system. So, if you have an overstimulated nervous system due to stress, due to substances, due to emotional mismanagement, that is going to fuck up your ability to raise your vibration, to release what no longer serves you. So again, this is just a starting point of this conversation. There's no way I can fully encapsulate everything that I'm talking about here in one talk. No, Justine, I have not met her mother yet. Soon. So there you go, ladies. That is all I got to say tonight. Thank you for sharing this beautiful experience with me and for holding space for my story. There was a lot more story time in this week's Monday with Matt than normal, but I thought it was important to really deeply share for the sake of posterity and for each one of you, the depth of what I experienced. Because, it's the most powerful experience of my life. So who do I want to share it with? My tribe, my community, my family. So I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope it activated you and excited you for what's possible for each and every one of you. And I will see y'all next week for Mondays with Matt. And if you're part of my VIP Magnet tribe, I will see you tomorrow for office hours. So Michelle and Kelsey and everybody who's watching from VIP, I will see y'all tomorrow. So much love to each and every one of you. Good night, y'all. See you next week.